I think it's sometimes called the clipboard theory, that a person in a white coat with a clipboard can talk intelligent, willing people into doing horrific things. And I think I think I might have been watching the documentary today, and I saw January 6th, and I just thought, what did those people think 5 years before that? Will they ever thought they would have got here? What will they think 5 years from now? This is part of the original experiment that if you're watching us on video, this is from the 60s. And this man here is the one who's being tested. And the testing is when the person in the other room gets a question wrong, he gives him an electric shock in incrementally higher numbers. Now, the person in the other room is just an actor, so it's not happening. But this person doesn't know that. And they continue to give the other person electric shocks almost until a deadly moment. I'll play you a little bit of this so you can see it if you haven't seen it before.
Cloud, horse, rock, house. Answer. Wrong. 150 volts. Answer, horse.
Experiment, that's all. Get me out of here. Get me out of here, please.
Continue, please. Go right on.
I refuse to go on. Let me out.
So he doesn't want to do it, yeah?
The experiment requires you continue, teacher. Please continue.
Participants didn't know that the learner was really an actor and the so-called shocks harmless.
So that's what that was. And I thought there's a modern day context if people want to check it out. It's on Netflix. It's really interesting. It's called The Push. Have you guys seen The Push? Sanjana, have you seen The Push?
I've not seen The Push, no.
Okay, so The Push, and I'm going to turn the volume down because we'll get kicked off YouTube for doing it. The Push is Derren Brown, right? So Derren Brown sets up about social compliance, right? That guy in the red here that you can see, that guy right there, he wants to see if he can force a person to commit murder. And what they do is they use a series of incremental instructions, getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger to see if they can set up to get that man, the subject who doesn't know everyone else is in on it, to push someone off the roof of a building. And the very first thing they start with is they have sausage rolls, yeah? And they don't order vegan sausage rolls. So the first instruction that guy complies with is just put some flags in the non-vegan ones and we'll just tell them they're vegan. And he complies. And he continues to comply until he gets to a decision at the end of the program of will he push this person off the roof or not and kill them, commit murder. And it's, I don't really want to tell people what happens. Okay, I won't tell you what happens with him, right? So that guy with the red hair, if you're going to watch it on Netflix, I won't tell you what happens with him, but I can tell you they show a bunch of highlights at the end. Believe it or not, most people push the guy off the roof. Most people murder someone based on an hour and a half of social conditioning. Now, you think about that and add that to the anti-vaxxer brigade, right? Everyone's jotting down now, the push, watch the push, got to watch the push. You think about that from the anti-vaxxer, the vegan sausage roll might be something really simple like, oh, mandates, don't like mandates. That might be the vegan sausage roll. The end of it is setting up a gallows on Capitol Hill looking for, that might be the push off the building, is looking for Mike Pence because you want to hang him. And these things happen, and the social contagion or the social conditioning is something very real. Before I make it sound too depressing, I also want to say he's done another show, which is called The Sacrifice, where he kind of does the opposite, and he wants to experiment. Will a stranger take a bullet for another stranger? So he does it's sort of the opposite. Will someone give up their life for a stranger? And it's not just a stranger. This guy here that you're seeing on screen, if you're watching, he's a bit of a Trumpian, right-wing, anti-immigrant guy. And would he take a bullet for an illegal Mexican immigrant? And again, it's a step by step by step by step by step. When you get to the end of the social conditioning, what will you do? And like I said, go and watch The Push. It's on Netflix. Go and watch. I think this is called Sacrifice. And have a look what it can do. And then think about your uncles and your aunts and the people who are posting on Facebook and where it's starting and where it could go. It's a fascinating experiment. It's a terrifying experiment. Like I said, I won't tell you what that guy and the main guy was for that push. One person doesn't know the experiment's going on. The other 100 people do, and they're acting to it. I'm not going to tell you what happened with him, but I will say clearly the majority of people who they tested ended up murdering someone, and it only took them an hour or so to be convinced to do it by what's going on around them. You're welcome to jump in now. That's sort of, I just wanted to kind of share that.
Well, now you sorted my Netflix viewing for the so that, and then the algorithm is useless. I mean, thank you for recommending it. When you were talking, at least in the first incarnation of what that chap was trying to do, my mind went to the 63 book by Hannah Arendt, Eichmann in Jerusalem, The Benignity of Evil, how ordinary people can do the most heinous of things. And she's talking about the Third Reich, of course. It really is the case. And Pat, I don't know whether you remember this, but when Paula asks that person later on towards the end of the doco and long after the protest, whether she thought she was being violent, she said, no, I wasn't being violent. That to me was the clincher, not actually what you pointed out, which was the clip from the protest site itself with her menacingly approaching the cameraman. And in the spirit and the heat of the moment, you could have argued that upon greater reflection and with the passage of time, she would have thought a bit about it and had a different answer. But the fact that she didn't think that she was being violent, for me, was the clincher. Right. That was the highlight of that segment. And that, in a sense, speaks to, Pat, what you just articulated, which is social conditioning. And, there's a whole swathe of what we do and how we do it and what we study and where we study it and who produces and the form and shape it takes. That is around that. That is around how you get people to believe and think and then do things. And that is also, I know time is of essence here, but, one of the things that, another point that I diverged from is with Rebecca Kitteridge and her assessment of the threat. And George, I see you nodding, which is, of course, from a very NatSec perspective, right? So I'm not critiquing that. I'm just saying it for what it is. And the assertion, and by the way, it was both an assurance to Kiwis that they have 40 to 50 people in their gaze or radar, and that even though the temperature's gone up, she was, very assuring to Kiwis that, what she says is not commensurate with an increased risk society. Now, I don't want to get into that, but it was interesting for me that it ended there. And that it goes back to what I said earlier, because so much of this is from an NatSec perspective. What we bring to the table is, Pat, to suggest that what starts online never stays online.
Yeah.
What starts online always, through the shaping of your attitudes, perceptions, beliefs, reactions, and responses, invariably and indubitably ends up in offline consequences. That then is what disinformation is at its core. It is not something ever designed to stay online. It is always with a strategic end state of offline consequences that in a country like Aotearoa are going to impact your democratic fabric. Therein lies the rub.